So Institute for Excellence in Writing is teaching our students to be excellent writers, excellent communicators, not only verbally, but in the written form, which is very important. I love that Andrew Pudewa recognizes it really follows along with the classical model, that with Shirley Grammar, we're really creating a structure, so to speak, of them understanding language, how words function in a sentence. So they're just learning those terms in that grammar stage, and then as we're hitting them with getting them in that 4th to 6th grade, no hitting, that we are getting that kind of middle to end of the grammar stage and into that logic stage where they're starting to really process and ask questions, and then being able to implement the terminology that they've learned to be able to make those work to communicate what they're trying to say and think. And so it's really a neat partnership with Shirley Grammar and IEW.
You want me to be your you can just take over and
I'm not really good with these, but so I'm going to try to. Okay, so Andrew breaks it down, Andrew Pudewa, to structure and style is the main points that he introduces with the IEW program. So structure he likens to building a castle. And when you're building a structure, you want to draw the plans up and then follow the plans, and you're starting with a foundation and building those different parts together. So we would want to make sure not to be putting the bathroom in the kitchen, for example. There's a reason we put the bathroom where we put it. There's a reason we put the kitchen where we put it. And so we're creating a functional building that does what we want it to do, as opposed to haphazardly putting it together. And so he goes through these different structures, different types of writing for different occasions that we're trying to write.
Oh. You can just tap right anytime.
Okay. So what we've started out with is keyword outlines. Hopefully everybody can see that here. But so we're trying to capture the main idea from a composition, but translate it with the children's own language, so that we're not plagiarizing and they're really making it their own. The rules in place are that they can use 3 words per line, and numbers, pictures, and symbols do not count toward that limit. So one of the temptations for the kids, I would say, thanks, okay. One of the temptations is to basically try to recreate every word in the sentence with a picture. So what I put use sparingly, because the idea is really to use those sparingly, so that you're taking, again, the main ideas, but not all of the little details, so that leaves room for the children to be able to fill in with their own language. Okay, so I did not intend to underline Justinian the Great, so sorry about that. But so we've just been working through units 1 and 2, note making, and I keep forgetting it's right here. Okay, I can look here. And writing from notes. So the composition that we're on right now is Justinian the Great. So I just took the first 3 sentences of this paragraph. So it says, while the Western Roman Empire fell to barbarians, the Eastern Roman Empire withstood attacks. This was the Byzantine Empire. One of its mightiest emperors was Justinian the Great. So what we're doing at this point, I love that Andrew Pudewa starts out with giving the kids the information. They're not coming up with, what do you want to write about? And then the kids are like, I don't know. What do I want to write about? And so again, I love that this is kind of this stage of in between for the grammar and the logic, or where it's kind of coming together. And so he starts out and then progress with giving them the information to work from, and then kind of progressively as IEW continues on, is more and more pulling from within the child's brain, as opposed to having it there on the paper for them to start with. So I love that. So here we're doing our keyword outline. Okay, remind me if I don't say the title rule, but I'm not ready to say it yet. Okay, so what we're trying to do, this part, guys, I tried to do a really cool thing, and I just don't know it well enough. Okay, so we have Justinian the Great as the title. So I just have the kids start by writing that down. And then the first line, for those of you who have kids in my class right now, they start out with the Roman numeral 1, and that would just be the first sentence of the paragraph, okay? So we have been writing a lot about the Roman Empire, and so we have kind of consistently been just using capital R period, capital E period for an abbreviation for the Roman Empire. So this was a really easy, seamless thing to just do WRE for Western Roman Empire. And then instead of fell, I did the arrow down, and barbarians, and then Eastern Roman Empire, and then did not fall. So you can see there how I changed it from withstood attacks to basically get the gist of it, that they didn't fall. And that leaves room for the kids to really be able to use different language for the same idea. The second one, I just put Byzantine Empire, because that sentence is, this was the Byzantine Empire. The third sentence, one of its mightiest emperors was Justinian the Great. So the number 1, remember, numbers don't count, so I did use 1, even though it's the word O-N-E, that's a little trick. And then the other one, it's hard in Word to create a muscular arm, but that is supposed to be a muscular arm. And we have used that. Okay, I might be giving a little too much leeway there, but we have been using that for like strength or power within our outlines recently. So that is just saying one of the most powerful emperors was Justinian the Great. Again, we're kind of doing a lot of where if the title is something, we can easily just translate that to an abbreviation. So Justinian the Great is our title, and so JTG is really easy to just use because we know exactly what we're talking about there. Okay, so now we have our keyword outline. There it is. Okay, so here's our keyword outline. And now we have to do our tell back. Oh, I wasn't going to push that one yet. Okay, so the tell back, we are going to take that keyword outline. Sometimes our kids will stand in front of the mirror and do this, or you might, hopefully some of you have had children come to you and ask to give their tell back. And basically what that's doing is training them to take these keywords, fill in those blanks to make complete sentences before they're having to translate that onto a page. So they're just practicing saying it several times to get used to that. So we would maybe say the Western Roman Empire fell to barbarians, but the Eastern Roman Empire did not fall. It was the Byzantine Empire. One of the most powerful emperors of the Byzantine Empire was Justinian the Great. So I might say that over and over again. Then I'm going to go ahead and, oh, you took it off. I didn't even see. Good job. Okay, thanks. So then I would translate that into written form. So I switched this up a little bit more than how I was doing the tell back. But I think when they're writing it down, again, they have the words in front of them, and it's a little bit easier there to change out some of these terms for synonyms that might be more specific. So I have, although barbarians crushed the Western Roman Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire stood its ground. This was the Byzantine Empire. I kept that sentence just the same. Justinian the Great proved one of its most formidable emperors. So that's a way that I've taken this paragraph and I'm continuing to have the same idea, but it's given different life because of my own language within it. That brings up our checklist. So I meant to put this out there, but
I'll pass it.
Okay, thank you. So if you can look at your checklist when Andrew hands that over, that would be awesome. So we've just started using checklists in class, and Poudwa uses these throughout IEW's curriculum, and it just gives the kids really clear conditions that they need to meet in their papers. And he really emphasizes trying to create a structure that is consistent, but giving them freedom to make the writing their own, as opposed to really, grading papers can be a very subjective thing. And so he really emphasizes that we're letting them be creative, letting them be unique in how they write, but making sure that they're sticking with the structure that needs to be used for that type of writing. And I really appreciate that. So we've got MLA format, which is just kind of ushering them in a little bit into that, which they will use furthermore in the Lost Tools of Writing in Andrew and Josiah's class. And then the title centered and repeats 1 to 3 keywords from the final sentence. That was the title rule, I was going to say. So basically you're taking that final sentence and pulling out 1 to 3 words and creating a title that just grabs the reader's attention. So they can use other words as well, but they're just trying to take out like a keyword that wraps it together in kind of this nice package. So when I have them turn it in, they put the checklist on top, then they put their final draft, then they put their rough draft, and their keyword outline. And we actually haven't done that yet because their keyword outlines are in their books, and I have to figure out how to do that seamlessly. But that helps me to be able to see all of the steps that they've gone through to create this final product. So then we come to our style. Okay, so style, Andrew Pudewa likens to clothing. We can think about what people wear, and that they would wear particular clothing for particular occasions. So if someone had a formal event, they're not going to wear sweats and a sweatshirt. Now maybe in this day and age, that might happen. I'm not sure, but in general, we want to think about what would fit for a specific occasion in our writing. And it also creates variety, which makes it much more interesting. So I talked to the kids when we first started out just about if we said the same kind of sentence, every single sentence of a paragraph, even as simple as using pronouns versus not using pronouns. Like, so Mary is holding Mary's cup. Mary is smiling. Mary has nice teeth. Mary's teeth are shining. Mary is tapping Mary's water bottle. Mary is holding. So, that there's ways that we add variety into our writing or into our language that makes it interesting as opposed to like, okay, let's switch it up a little bit. And so he has all of these different things that he adds in steps for the kids to be able to make their writing more interesting and varied. He has dress-ups, sentence openers, decorations, triple extensions, and advanced dress-ups. So we will progressively add more of these things in. We may or may not get to quite the last ones, but again, one of the great things about IEW is that we're having repetition. So the students who are fourth graders are going to get this exact same structure 5th grade, 6th grade, and so it makes it easier and easier for them and more familiar for them to be able to implement these different things. So right now, we're at the point of just using ly adverbs and who-which clauses. So here we have again our paragraph, and we need to add an ly adverb and a who-which clause into it. So I started with a who-which clause. In this case, now this can be a little bit tricky for the kids, I would say, adding these in. And so I like to try to find natural ways as opposed to, it's really fun to come up with and brainstorm ly adverbs and who-which clauses. But coming up with a great ly adverb doesn't necessarily mean that it fits with the particular piece of writing that we are working on. So I love that in this one, I thought this was the Byzantine Empire was a real easy one to just add that into the previous sentence by taking out this was the and say which was the Byzantine Empire. And those are offset with commas, if you notice, if they're in the middle of the sentence. And then impressively, because I thought it is pretty impressive that Justinian the Great is one of the most formidable emperors of all time of the Byzantine Empire. So here I added this in. It says, although barbarians crushed the Western Roman Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire, here's our who-which clause, which was the Byzantine Empire, stood its ground. So right there, I didn't even really add anything to the paragraph, right? I just fit it right in where it makes sense. It's telling us, the who-which clause tells us more about a noun or a pronoun. And one of the things you can do if your kids are really struggling with this, it's good to start out just by looking for nouns and pronouns, because then what you're trying to do is have them come up with something that's going to give us more information about that noun or pronoun. So that's a great way to find that. Then I put in impressively, Justinian the Great proved one of its most formidable emperors. So we've checked off. Now I'm going to go to my checklist and put a little mark by that to say, yep, I've got it in there. I didn't do this, but the kids have to underline their ly adverb, underline the who or the which, and then I actually have them denote in the right-hand margin ly or ww, and that just helps me as the teacher, so I'm not like combing through. Especially as we've got we'll end up with a whole bunch of these dress-ups. it's nice to be able to see, like, which one are they, I know there's all these underlined words, which one are they saying is their who, which clause, or, so that's a good way to do it. Then we have mechanics on your checklist, capitalization and marks and punctuation, complete sentences, correct spelling. Vocabulary words is another way that we, I love that, again, there are ways really easily for us to change this up depending upon the levels of the students. So like right now, some of the older students are moving on to doing 2 paragraphs, and I have most of the class doing 1 paragraph at a time so that it doesn't feel too overwhelming for them. Vocabulary words, likewise, we have a pretty rigorous spelling program, and so I've only added that in for our 6th graders now who are adding a vocabulary word into it because IEW has some vocab words as well, and so they'll just pick one to put into their paragraphs, but the younger kids, I just don't do it. Okay. So here is the list of the units for IEW. Again, we have only gotten through 1 and 2. We're just finishing Justinian, and that will move us on to Unit 3, retelling narrative stories. Summarizing a reference, writing from pictures, which is really fun, where they're actually, you get pictures, and then the kids have to come up with, what's happening in this picture? And I've done some really fun ones. Anyway, and it's just really fun to see what they come up with from the same exact picture. Inventive writing, formal essay models, and formal critique. So that would be of books. So I just really quickly wanted to give you a heads up about the story sequence chart because that is coming up in our next unit. And so it's a different look with the same idea of the keyword outline. But before we went through and took every single sentence one by one and took 3 keywords from that for every sentence. In this case, it's this little baby step, but maybe a little more of a leap for the kids to now be coming up with some more things on their own. They're still doing a keyword outline, but instead of it being sentence by sentence, they're reading the whole source text, and then they're having to ask these questions of themselves for characters and setting. What is the setting? Who are the people like in this source text? What is the situation going on? When is it happening? Where is it happening? And they still have the same rules that they can only put 3 words on each line, and they can still use symbols and numbers, but they're having to comb through and figure out what is the setting here? And then moving on to the conflict and problem. What is the problem that these characters are facing? What do they want or need? What do they think? What do they say? The do is not more important. It's not supposed to be over there, but those are all the same. So they're asking those questions and having to wrestle with those and pull them out. And so this is tricky because it's definitely a shift, as you can imagine, from just going sentence by sentence. Then we have our climax and resolution. How was it solved? Is there a moral or a message? Is there an epilogue? And you'll notice too, this doesn't mean that this has to be 1 line, this has to be 2 lines, or the second line. That's just how it's organized. But basically you're asking these questions, and it could be that there's tons of information about when it's happening, and you end up with 2 lines on that. And maybe there's just a little bit about where, and so you've got 1 line on that. But this is just an example of filling that out. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a sense of where your kids are at or where they're going, or maybe what they missed if you've just got older ones. But it's a really great program, and are there any questions that anyone has?
When are they making the leap to this story sequence chart?
Next week. Yeah. I mean, yes, if the Justinian the Great paragraph comes back and it's like, I did their rough drafts today and they seemed like, hey, they're killing it. Because I was thinking, well, I don't know, should we do it? But so that's my plan. But if it seems like, I think we need a little more time, then I'll just come up with a different one in between.
All right. Cool. Is there another question?
Banned words. Okay, that's a good question. We haven't hit that yet, but basically there tend to be words that we use over and over in the English language that aren't very specific. So I wrote down some of them, like get or got. Instead of saying she got the idea, maybe you would say she received the idea, right? So there are different words that are much more specific, or like he went to the store, he galloped to the store, or you're giving this more of a sense of forcing the kids to really dig in and like, let's create a picture for what is happening in this scenario, as opposed to using kind of the lazy word. So yes, the banned words are like, nope, can't use those. Make it better.
All right, thank you, Mrs.